supposed to be driving? And he says, I'm going to. He had this arm up. So I'm sure he was one-handed driving.
Well, the hardest thing is starting it. The key's right here and
Yeah.
it don't work. Yeah.
Well, in my case, if I had to drive, which the doctor said, well, you could do with your left foot, but I've been playing the card, I'm not going to until.
Oh. Well, okay. That was kind of a whirlwind, wasn't it?
Kind of riding on the roller coaster whack, but we can come back, kind of figure out, summarize where,
Yeah.
what we tried to cover, which I understand has been a struggle. I know I'm not the only one thinking, because we're traveling with the verses.
Okay.
Explains.
Okay. So we probably need to do that. Let's stop there in our exegesis, and we'll leave verses 4 and 6 for next time. And I don't know if we get through those two verses in a time or not. Those are, well, maybe. But we have verses that we went through tonight of being 1 to 3 and then 7 to 10. And probably, well, one thing I could point out here is on the defeat of Satan here in verse 8 of chapter 20, where we talked about after the 1,000 years he'll be released and he'll come out to receive the nations that are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog. Remember last time we read in Ezekiel 38 and 39?
Oh, is that where that comes from?
Yeah, about that and how that is an image of this in Ezekiel, and how that was interesting and all and pointed out when we read that, the imagery in there with the deceiving of the nations, where God, I guess, tricks them to come out and attack Israel, but he just gathers them together for the slaughter and slaughters them all, and how the birds of the air feast on their corpses. It's Gog and Magog.
And what do you know, where do you find it in Ezekiel
38 and 39.
chapters?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we read it last time. We don't need to go
I
there
can't
again.
remember now.
I just saw that and wanted to point that out again. We went over it in reference to the Revelation 19 and
getting out both of them.
17.
38 and 39. Yeah, Gog and Magog.
But that's where that came from. Anybody at this time, remember Revelation was written primarily to the seven churches in Asia at this time, and they knew their Old Testament well, and they would have went right to that and Ezekiel and read that. Oh yeah, this is what that was talking about.
But it's in the
And,
bottom of my book too.
So anyway, is there? I'll just open it up for questions on what we went through here. Or comments or insights.
Well, it's just interesting to see how many places the same thing just not, but you don't, upon first reading, you don't see it, or you don't hear it, or
No.
you don't think, it doesn't say Satan was bound, it just uses different words, and so you don't always put them together like we did tonight, so.
That is interesting
Mhm.
to read all of that.
Mhm.
Different places all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that.
Huh?
I just love that. When that
Or
just
just-
clicks and.
Yeah, it just,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just shows how connected everything is, which I think until you get into this level of digging, you don't see. You just don't. You don't see it. And we thank you for digging, because,
Yeah.
thank you for digging and sharing.
it's my pleasure. I just get an immense amount of joy out of that. And I just, oh, look at here, over here, oh, look at that, look at this, look at, oh, wait a minute. And that's, I'm afraid that's the way it comes across a lot of times. It's kind of a scattered shotgun approach that, what is he talking about? But hopefully we,
No, I
Good.
think you're good.
No, it didn't. It was, I never noticed otherwise. I know.
So is this statement correct? The church is being protected during the time that Satan is bound, which began at Christ's death, crucifixion on the cross.
a little bit
Until-
before that, it began during his life. Remember we read in Matthew where bound the strong men and he said that sent the 72 out. He was still alive then. So it began earlier than his crucifixion.
During the time of
During
his
his-
teachings,
Mhm.
then?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Until the second coming?
Mhm. Mhm. The second coming is, and when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison. Chapter 20, verse 7. That is at the second coming. He will be unbound. And during the time of the church age, when he is bound in a way that he can't destroy the church, the woman he's coming after the woman, the church, but she's protected in the wilderness. And that is what we're seeing now. And it's not a sense of being protected from inconvenience and pain, suffering, or even death. It's the sense of being protected, that the church will always be here in a sense as a witness to the nations. That's where I brought in that witness, those two witness tests in 11 to point that out, that the church during this time is here to be a witness to the nations. And the witness might be and most assuredly is, the demonstration of the power of faith under persecution. That is the most powerful witness. I mean, you get some rich, fancy church that's got a nice building and all sorts of money running out their ears, and their witness to a lost and suffering world is not very powerful. But you get a persecuted church who keeps their faith through suffering, through persecution, and does not abandon their faith. That is a powerful witness. So we don't want to think that the church is protected from being uncomfortable. Anybody that's got eyes to see would know that, but, I mean, there's people that teaching is out there, the health, wealth, and prosperity gospel. That's just, I don't know if that's too big anymore or not, but boy, 10 years ago, that was big.
What was that?
Health, wealth, and prosperity gospel.
Oh,
Joel Osteen was the
Oh.
father of that.
I never listened to him.
Good.
As Roger said, don't listen to him. So I didn't.
But there's, yeah, name it and claim it, you know, that, you've heard those phrases. That is, that's out there, but
What'd you say was out there? What'd you say was out?
oh, they call it, just a catchphrase that people use.
Oh.
Health, wealth, and prosperity gospel is a catchphrase
Oh.
for, come to Jesus and all your problems will be solved.
Oh,
You pray for, you need money, you pray for money, and God will get you some money.
oh.
You need a car fixed, or you need it, whatever, and it'll happen. You just gotta believe. Name it and claim it. That's another phrase that came out of that movement where you name something and claim it as yours. Like if you're got a cancer, you say, well, I'm gonna be healthy and I'm gonna claim that. Jesus, I find a scripture in here where Jesus says, I came that you have life and have it abundantly, and I'm gonna grab hold of that. I want an abundant life.
Oh.
I wanna be free from this cancer. I'm gonna claim that as mine, and I'm gonna believe it, and I'm gonna be cured.
Oh,
That's the name it and claim it.
I think he's still on TV, isn't he? Once
I
in a
have no
while.
idea.
I've seen that in the TV guide, I
Okay.
think.
And so do they actually think that happens? I mean, does he-
Maybe some people do.
Oh, I'm sure. A friend of mine is into that, and he one of his favorite stories is he needed $10 for something. He was broke, but he opened up he just said a short prayer, opened up his billfold, and there was a $10 bill in there.
Oh,
There you go. It happened. So you base your life on that.
And he really believed that he prayed it and that made it be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm not saying God can't do that. He most certainly can do that. But is that something to we're not, God is not our divine butler.
It's just not something that I would think that God would do. I
You don't
mean-
think he can do that?
Oh, well, yeah, I could, but I just
Oh,
don't think
okay.
it was something that, I
He
mean, God
would.
can do anything.
He can do anything, but he does it on his terms.
Right.
Right.
yeah, yeah,
And he's not a divine butler where we snap our fingers and,
yeah.
He
I
comes.
need $10.
yeah, we say a prayer and
No,
it's
he
there.
won't do, well, he could if he wanted to, but we don't expect him to do that.
I wouldn't necessarily think of trying to call that movement of like a quick fix where it's,
Oh,
oh, I need this. Oh, I could look at this. And if I say it this way, then it'll come and it's problem solved. The short-term solution rather than long-term.
And we laugh at that attitude and think poo-poo at it, but it's really destructive because there are so many people that don't get that $10.
yeah,
That the cancer turns into a stage 4.
yeah, that's right.
And then they go to a health, wealth, and prosperity preacher and say, well, what's that all about? Well, you just got to believe. Well, apparently my faith isn't strong enough. And then they get that thrown at them, like, your faith is not strong enough. And old Joe Blow over there, he prayed and he got $10. And And Shirley over here, she prayed and was healed of her cancer. And there must be something wrong with your faith, because it didn't happen, obviously. You're dying, and it didn't happen to you. And what a horrible thing to... And it's not, I'm sure it's not said like that, but what are you going to be thinking if that's your mindset? That if I just believe and that God will do it, he'll do it. Well, he doesn't do it, well, then the onus is back on me. Apparently my belief is not strong enough, and there's something wrong, and my faith is useless. And what a terrible spiral that would cause.
Yeah.
And compile that with lack of finances or stage 4 cancer, and it would it'd be horrible.
Yeah.
And that's one reason I absolutely hate and despise that health, wealth, and prosperity gospel. For that reason, it just would be so devastating to thousands of people. And if it's ever, yeah, enough said on that. So, yeah, that's out there. I don't know what got us onto that.
I think it was something I said, but I don't even... That's that type of thing.
Oh, the church being persecuted throughout the,
Yeah.
or church being, no, I should say the church being, Satan being bound and the church being protected during the church age. We're not protected in that sense. Any questions on that millennium? Then I just breezed through, Debbie.
Well, I think the hardest part about any time that years, days, a number is used, we have to realize that God's time is not our time. And that's just, I guess because we pay so much attention to time, that's difficult to do. And I learned it at a very early age, and I think probably one of the Sunday school teacher may have said it, but I questioned the Genesis. On the first day, God created, and as a child, I'm thinking, one day? Because all I could think of was what I knew one day to be in time. And it was my mom said it. She said, well, one day could be millions of years in God's time. We don't know. Well, then you get into this where they keep saying 1,000 years. They keep saying 3.5 years. And I got really hung up on it. And it still makes, you still,
Well, how
you
about
just have
this?
to realize it's God's time, not our time.
Well, how about this? If we'll just take this 1,000 years in verses 1 to 3 here, and let me just read it. Then I saw an angel come down from heaven, holding in his hand a key to a bottomless pit with a great chain, and he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. Okay, now what in that is literal and what is figurative? Now, do we think that the angel literally was holding a key to a pit that has no bottom and had a great chain in the other hand?
Wow.
No, that's probably figurative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. do we really believe that he grabbed or seized a dragon? Is that a literal dragon? Or an ancient serpent? A really old snake? And bound him with that chain? Do we take that literal?
No.
No.
Yeah.
For 1,000 years. Why would we take that 1,000 years literally?
And we shouldn't. I mean, we can't, but yeah.
Well, why would we? If everything else in here, in that, prefacing that, is figurative, why would we pull that 1,000 years out and say, well, that's, obviously that's 1,000 years, that's 365,000 days. Literally.
Yeah.
Nothing else is.
Right, right.
That's probably,
It's just a period of time.
that's
And that's-
probably what helped me most.
It's just a period of time, and
Well, it's a long period of time from an earthly standpoint. That's why I brought in that First Peter. That was really helpful to me when I saw that. It's a long period of time from an earthly standpoint. It's 1,000. That's none of us
Yes.
are going to see it.
yeah, right.
But from an eternal standpoint, it's like a day.
Maybe nothing, we don't know.
And but we are earthbound right now, so it's a long period of time, and it has been. And from our earthly standpoint, it's been 2,000 years, and it's counting. It might go another 2,000 years. We don't know. It's
No.
a long period of time, but from an eternal standpoint, it's going to be short. It's going to be short. And we are assured that as Christ's children, we're going to persevere. We're going to make it through, no matter what. We are. We'll see. We'll get into that more next week in verses 4 and 5 and 6. Those are going to be some really good ones. But this is given for our encouragement and our perseverance. I mean, like the dispensational premillennialists, they say that there's going to be at some time, there's going to be a rapture where the church is taken out of the picture. Before a tribulation, it's just going to be at some random time the church is taken out. And then there's going to be a 7-year tribulation divided in 2 halves. And then there's going to be a millennium, an actual 1,000 years, 365,000 days in a row here, where Christ is going to rule on earth. But we're taken out way up here on the front. So.
And where are we? Where are we taken out to?
Well, we're raptured into heaven. But so then anything that follows that really has no effect on us. We're out of the picture. And Jesus, his rule for 1,000 years is on earth, and it's with the Jews. It's probably on your chart there. It's mainly dealing with Israel. And then there's another final battle at the end, and where Satan is released, and again we're gone. So if you have a dispensationalist premillennial view, why would you even be interested in this book? If after chapter 4 chapter 2, where John is taken up to heaven, they say that's the rapture, that's the end of it, then the rest of the book is just kind of curious diversion, because you're gone. We're out of the picture. The church is out of the picture completely. And that's probably why a lot of churches today stay completely away from the book of Revelation.
I imagine so.
because of
Is-
that common view
Is
that.
rapture ever mentioned in the Bible?
Not in Revelation. No, it's not. The word rapture is not mentioned in Revelation, but it is mentioned in something akin to it. Would be Second Thessalonians, I believe.
Second rapture.
Let's see if that's right.
It's not something I remember ever being,
Well, that
Mentioned.
word is not in there.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's in 2 Thessalonians chapter 4.
Second Thessalonians only goes to 3:15.
Oh, I'm in First Thessalonians.
Okay, just checking.
I'm not seeing too well tonight, but that was a good thing, because I was looking for 2 Thessalonians, but then I turned to First.
so,
1 Thessalonians 4, beginning in verse 13. It says, "But we do not want you to be
Yeah.
uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep, those who have died, that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep. For this we declare to you by a word from the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord," this is the end times, "will not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a cry of command, with a voice of the archangel, and with the sound of the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up," raptured, "together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will always be with the Lord." Now, we don't, yeah, there is the rapture, caught up. If you're alive at the time of Christ coming, you're gonna just be caught up in the air with all the souls going up to meet him.
was that the phrase we used on
On the float?
the, yeah. I think it did come
Probably-
from Thessalonians.
probably.
And maybe it was
Mhm.
something about those who had been left behind, those that were still on our show,
Mhm.
join
Mm-hmm.
with those already gone.
Join with
And
those
in the
air.
clouds, they used the word clouds, I
Oh.
believe.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
So that's the definite, that's what's gonna happen.
There's in the clouds, it's in there, it's right there.
so
That
what,
must be it, that must be that she found that.
what's that?
That went, the verse that went along with the theme of our Corn Carnival float, was
Okay.
it last year?
Mhm.
yes.
Because it was exactly what we were trying to depict, which I think was probably over everybody's head. I mean, we got it, we totally got it, and everybody on the float got it. But yeah, it had to have been that,
But
because
this,
that's.
I mean, this contradicts nothing that we've been talking about here. I have no problem with this section here, going hand in glove with
But that.
what we were just
being
talking about.
Caught up in the clouds is what rapture means.
Yeah, yeah, that's what, when they say rapture, that's what they mean. It's not you don't find that word R-A-P-T-U-R-E in the Bible, but it comes from that idea. Now, the premillennialists will say, well, that happens Christ comes back in secret and raptures his church before the Great Tribulation, and takes them out of there so they don't go through the tribulation. The Great Tribulation is 7 years of this literal 7 years. See, they get hung up on literal stuff. That isn't what we've been seeing in Revelation, but that's what the dispensational premillennialists will tell you, that the church is taken out of the picture. Secretly, Christ comes back and raptures his church, and then the 7 years begins. But you read, and they get that from Thessalonians, but it's a careful reading of Thessalonians. This doesn't sound like it's going to be a secret rapture.
No.
He's descending from heaven with a cry of command, and with the voice of an archangel, and with the sound of the trumpet of God. This is going to be a big, loud deal.
Yeah, yeah. So where do these people, they're making this stuff up? How are they doing that? I mean, they're obviously not reading the Bible.
That's exactly right. They pick and choose and rely on.
Add to things that aren't there.
Well, they start with a system and then force the Bible into their system, instead of starting with the Bible and shaping your system from the Bible.
Right.
That's what we try and do here. That's why I didn't even like to label my ideas as amillennialism. I don't like to do that. I like to say, well, biblical. That if it fits amillennialism, well, that's so much the better for them, I guess. But I'm just trying to be going by what the Bible says here.
Oh, here's something I was wondering about. I thought somewhere it said that when you die, you'll go right to Christ. You'll go right to Jesus. But how can you be caught up?
Those are the ones that are alive at his second coming.
Oh, okay. And this
And
right
the dead that rise up out of the graves, we'll get into that next week.
oh,
There's
this is,
two resurrections. There's the as Christians we experience the first resurrection, which is the resurrection of our dead soul to life, and then when we die physically, our souls go to be with Jesus. We don't have a body. That's the second resurrection that we'll see. And then when it says that the dead will rise up out of their graves, their bodies are that's an imagery for the second resurrection.
I see. And this says, those who have fallen asleep, that is the souls of those who have been in heaven with Christ up to this point. The direction of movement, whether upward or downward, is debated, although the allusion to Zechariah 14:5, picture of Christ coming down from heaven, bringing with him the soul of those who have already died. Paul's point is that all Christians who have died, fallen asleep, will be with Christ in his second coming as Christ descends to earth. Their bodies are I don't know. It really talks a lot about it in this part here. In what you just read, chapter 4, 13 and 14, the explanation there.
Put Becky's name on one of those sheets.
I'll just fold it up and put it in my Bible
Okay.
with the yellow scratch paper.
There you go.
else, or? That's enough to chew on.
It's a lot to chew on.
Hmm?
It's a lot to chew on.
Okay. Well, we don't want anybody gagging. We'll chew on that then. And, next week we'll get into those middle verses and maybe get through them, but that's gonna be not the same thing.
Then it will be Easter.
Next week is?
No, after, the week after that will be Easter.
Next weekend is.
Next
On
week's
Sunday.
on Sunday. Is
Yeah,
it,
next
is it
Sun-
coming early
It's
this
on
year?
Sunday.
Seems like Easter is awful early. Sometimes it's.
So
Yeah,
what will be
sometimes
the
it's
date
April.
on Easter? Will it be in, oh,
First.
I know it is, yeah, April Fool's Day. That's,
Can we meet
So I
next
can-
week then?
We can meet next week, I just was assuming we probably wouldn't meet Easter Sunday.
Okay.
Is that,
Yeah, that's, we'll probably have a house full.
There
but
was
I just
something
wanted to
I
kinda know
read,
ahead of time, so.
Okay.
there was something that I read that, and this was on Facebook, because relative to the fact that Easter falls on April 1st, they said, here's an idea for you. Take the wrappings from the chocolate miniature eggs, take grapes and wrap them with the candy wrap and the chocolate and hide them for Easter. And so what
The
they're
kids would
going
love
to
that,
find is
wouldn't they?
it's going to be April Fools.
I got something for you.
Oh,
like grapes.
Oh, yeah. Grapes, you roll with it.
oh dear.
Okay, somebody got a prayer to send us home with?
I can do.
Okay.
I should say, God, you can do that. Because you bring all of this illumination of your word to us through our teacher and our digging and our understanding, growing. And only you can do that. We thank you, we praise you. Hunger for more. So we thank you for drawing us together each time we can be together. Thank you. Be with Becky and give her your peace as she is with her friend. Amen.
Amen.
So you're gonna see the eye doctor tomorrow?
Yeah, I got a fucking warning.
Oh. I hope we get things worked out. You will eventually.
Oh,